Hi everyone and welcome back to my booktube channel, Lisa in Bookland. Today I'm here to bring you an extra video which is my TBR for the Past and Future Readathon, which is being hosted in January by a load of different booktubers who I'll leave linked down below. This is my first year taking part in this readathon, but I've always liked the sound of it because it just gives you a chance. I think the prompts are broad enough that you can pick books from your shelves or books that you've been intending to read anyways, but also does make you at some stages consider things that you weren't going to get to for a while. So yeah, a great readathon. I'm really looking forward to it. So the first prompt is a book by a favourite author. So my favourite author is Jane Austen, and I have of course read all of her books, so I've decided to go for another favourite author instead. It doesn't say it has to be your absolute favourite author of all time. So another author that I really enjoy the work of is Patrick O'Brien, who's most well known for the OBrien novels, a set of naval adventures set in the Napoleonic Wars. But he also wrote some other books, and I've actually never written any of his other books. And I just love his writing style. His characters are wonderful, but the language itself, I would say that Jane Austen and Patrick O'Brien are the only authors that I tend to read out loud to myself sometimes, just for the pleasure of it. And also, they apparently, a lot of people have remarked they do have quite similar writing styles, so that probably influences it as well. So yeah, excited to get to this book that I picked up last year. It's Hussein by Patrick O'Brien. So this is a standalone novel. It was the second novel that he wrote ever. I think it was about 30 years before he wrote the OBrien series, and it was published in 1938, so I suppose you could call it a modern classic as well. And it follows this young man called Hussein, who is an elephant handler in India. So yeah, in the back it says that India is really vividly described, even though Patrick O'Brien had actually never been to India. So I expect to really enjoy it, and Patrick O'Brien I also find is really funny, so yeah, hopefully it'll be a nice start to the year. I expect the portrayal of India in the 1930s, obviously pre-independence, to be interesting as well, and I'll be interested to see how elephants were treated back in those times. And I suppose we hear so much about them kind of being a bit treated badly now for tourist purposes, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see any differences there. And just when I was flipping through it, there's some lovely drawings. There is a little elephant at the start of the chapter, which is nice, but let me find a drawing. So yeah, love a book with drawings in it, and they should be more common. So the second prompt for the past then is to read a book that you've had on your shelves for far too long, or a TBR vet. So I suppose with Christmas just past, Christmas is on my mind, and I got this book for Christmas many Christmases ago, probably when it was first published, which was in 2007. So it's by an Irish author. It's called Take a Look at Me Now by Anita Nataro, and it is about this lady. Somebody knocks on her door one day to tell her that her sister is just being drowned, and she has to take care of her young nephew who's 3 years old. And I think she's dealing with some issues herself, as well as dealing with, I suppose, secrets that are coming up from her sister's background. So not really the type of book I'd go for now immediately, or even back then. I suppose, as I say, it was a Christmas present, but yeah, it will be interesting. I think I did try to read it when I first received it, but it was probably a bit old for me at that stage. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what I think of it now, and it'll be nice to get this one knocked off my TBR. So the third past prompt is to a children's book to relive your youth. I don't have that many children's books on my shelves, but what I did have is I actually picked this up in Madrid, of all places, and it's actually another book later I also picked up in Madrid last year when I was there. When you see the cover, you'll realise that I couldn't resist it, and that's this children's book, The Black Heart of Jamaica, by Julia Goulding. It's actually the 5th book in the Cat Royal series, but it seems to have won various awards at the bottom. I've never heard of this series before, so if anybody's read it, please be sure to tell me. But I think I should be able to catch up, because there is a cast of characters in the front, which I expect will give me some background, and I'm not terribly worried about spoilers, even though if I do enjoy this series, I'll go back and check out the rest of it. But Cat Royal seems to be the daughter of actors in Drury Lane, and she somehow ends up in Jamaica for this book, where she comes involved with pirates and has other adventures. So yeah, and it's set, I should have said it's set in the late 18th century as well, so happy days for me. So yeah, looking forward to this one as a nice fun read. While I'm on the topic of Madrid, someday I'd love to do a bookmark tour, but I picked up this bookmark from the shop I got it in, which had some English language books. I don't speak Spanish, but I picked this up because it had a sheep in it. I live at a sheep farm, as I think I've mentioned previously, but only when I got home did I translate it. Oh, will I give it a go? Hasta en las mayores familias hay una oveja lectora. And that translates to, even in the best families, there's a reading sheep, which I just love. It's the most perfect bookmark for me, so I will treasure this bookmark always. So the fourth and final past prompt then is to read a book from before when you were born. So as part of my Victorian literature reading project next year, I'm reading at least one Victorian novel every month, and I'm actually reading 2 next month, so I'm not going to pick up any additional books for this. But the books that I'm reading for the Victorian Literature Project are The Warden by Anthony Trollope, which is the first book in the Chronicles of Barchester series, and I'm also reading Shirley by Charlotte Brontë. So it'll be my first time reading The Warden, at least in full. I think I did read a few chapters of it before, and it'll be a reread of Shirley. I'm rereading Shirley because I read all of the Bronte's other work within the last year and a half, but I haven't read Shirley for a while, so yeah, rereading this one so I can do a Brontë ranking video when they're all a bit more fresher in my mind, but I'm looking forward to this one. So on to the future prompts then, I suppose. Perhaps predictably I did have a bit more difficulty selecting books for these prompts, but I am nevertheless really excited about them. So the fifth prompt is a book set in the future. So this is the one I had most difficulty with. Until Emily from Novel Novels, one of the hosts, reminded me in her announcement video, I think it was, or was it her TBR, that Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr is at least partially set in the future. So this is a book I've been really wanting to get to because another one of the hosts, Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, this was one of her favourite books from last year, 2022, and it always sounded really intriguing, so I picked it up, and the back definitely does sound interesting. It's set in 15th century Constantinople, present day Idaho, and the future, and the characters all seem to be linked by this manuscript, so yeah, looking forward to this one. I did really love All the Light We Cannot See. I think I read it 2 or 3 years ago, so yeah, he's a great writer and looking forward to getting to this one. So the sixth prompt then in the next future one is a book you've been looking forward to. So for some reason this book had caught my eye on my shelf for the last few weeks, and it's just been kind of niggling at me. I think it's ever since I read the non-fiction book about Coast Watching Service during the emergency in Ireland. There was obviously a lot of talk about the war in the Atlantic, and the book I'm talking about is Rendezvous South Atlantic by Douglas Reeman. So I'd heard of Douglas Reeman because I do love naval historical fiction, but I have read very little from the Second World War. And earlier last year, I really liked We the Drowned, the Second World War section. I'm like, oh, I should really check him out. And in Madrid, I found 2 of his novels, which was just a nice coincidence. I do have a bit of a bone to pick with this novel because when I was deciding my TBR and I took this off my shelf, it used to be there. You may have noticed that the books behind me are rearranged, and it's because when I took it down, I could tell my shelf had been becoming structurally unstable for a while, as it's actually now tilting over like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. About 100 books fell off at 12:30 at night. It was dreadful. But I did pick them all up again, and now, even though they're a bit harder to access, I don't think they're going to fall down so readily. But anyways, this is, I suppose, a standard enough storyline for these kind of novels, apart from it's set in a later period that I'm used to reading about. So this captain, Commander Lindsay, is given a ship that's just been converted from a merchant vessel, and he is to try and get the crew all together, I suppose, to survive in the hostile waters of the South Atlantic in the Second World War. So yeah, looking forward to getting to this one, and yeah, hopefully it won't open a big hole that I will have to dive into all of the Second World War and naval fiction as well as the Napoleonic War stuff. But I have heard very good things about this author as well, and I feel like because I do like this genre, I need to broaden my knowledge of it a little bit. So yeah. So prompt number 7 is a book with a protagonist that's older than you. Another one that I had a little bit of difficulty in deciding on a book for. I kind of wanted a protagonist that was convincingly older than me, not one that was 31 or something. So Yeah, but I did remember I had this one that I'd be looking forward to getting to as well, Miss Bensons Beetle by Rachel Joyce, which is a book I have heard a lot of positive reviews about from on BookTube. I'm not really sure how old the protagonist is, but I think the Miss Benson of the title, at least I suppose from her clothes in the picture, she is, I would guess she's in her 40s or 50s. Hopefully I'm not outrageously wrong. Miss Benson in 1950 leaves her dead-end job and goes on an expedition to find this really rare beetle. And she advertises for an assistant, but an assistant turns up that she's probably not expecting. Her name is Enid Pretty, and she maybe isn't dressed very well for an expedition on the cover. But yeah, I believe it's about the friendship that forms between them, and who doesn't love a good female-female friendship. So the 8th prompt to finish off then is a feel-good book to set the tone for the new year. Now, to be honest, I think any of these books, maybe with the possible exception of Shirley and the Warden, maybe they're a little bit heavier, could set the tone for the new year, and I'm really looking forward to all of them. In terms of a lighter, kind of easy to read book, I decided to go with this one, Empire of Ivory by Naomi Novik. This series featured in the series that I'm currently reading video that I did a few weeks ago, because I have read the first 3 books in the series and I've really loved them, and they're such fun reads. But just hadn't continued, so yeah, it's time to pick it up. I can't really say much about this book in particular because I don't want to give any spoilers for previous books, but suffice to say this is a fantasy series that's set in the Napoleonic Wars, and the big change is that there is like a 4th section of the military added in that there's a dragon corps. So yeah, it's told from a British perspective and the adventures of one character and his dragon. They're fighting Napoleon's forces, so yeah. It's just a fun series to get into, and up till now I think I've read the audiobooks as well, so would really recommend the audiobooks if you're considering diving in. So yeah, so that's it for today. Thanks so much to the hosts for hosting this readathon, and yeah, looking forward to seeing what everybody else is reading. And yeah, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday for my next video.